Chapter 23 is about different forms of ownership. So in this chapter, we're going to talk about condominiums, cooperatives, planned unit developments, and also timeshares. Here we have comparisons of different types of ownership. So as I go through and explain all of the different types, you can come back to this slide and it will make a lot more sense to you. So here we have condominiums. So think about a condominium like you might stay at the beach, right? Each individual person who owns a specific condominium unit owns that unit, okay? They own that as fee simple ownership. Now, most of the time when you think about a condominium, they also have common elements like a swimming pool, they might have tennis courts, they might have a fitness center. Those common elements are owned as tenants in common with everyone who owns a condominium. This is what condominium ownership looks like. Each one of these individual people owns their unit as fee simple, and then the common areas are owned together as tenants in common. Now, if you look at the picture of this condominium here, these actually look like what you may have seen referred to as townhouses. So townhouse is just another way of talking about this type of ownership. In a townhouse, in a condominium, you have fee simple ownership of your unit, and then the common areas are owned with everyone else who has a condominium or a townhouse. We know that condominiums are a combination of ownership, so you have fee simple ownership along with tenants in common. And this is created by a condominium declaration. There are bylaws that go along with condominiums. So these are going to be the things that give you basically the rules of how you're supposed to behave when you live there. What do these rules look like? Most condominium units are going to have bylaws, and they also have CCRs, which are covenants, conditions, and restrictions. So basically they're telling you what you can and can't do while you live there. It might be something as simple as if you're trying to rent your unit, you can't put a for rent sign in the window. It could go so far as to say you have to be the owner or occupier of the unit. You can't rent it. They could also limit the number of parking spaces you have, things like that. If you have all of these different people who own their own condominium or townhouse, and then there's also common areas that everyone owns together, then you're going to have to maintain those common areas. So there are fees that go along with being in a condominium type of community. It depends on the area, it depends on how it's set up. Most of the time these fees are collected annually. It might be that they're collected biannually, twice a year. But these are going to be fees to take care of the maintenance, make sure that the grass is cut, make sure that the pool is maintained. Also make sure that in the event that there's any type of emergency, you have a reserve fund, money that's set aside for an emergency. Depending on the type of area that you live in, the property taxes and the insurance may be paid through the maintenance fees. In some condominium developments, it's paid by the individual owner. So it really just depends on how it's set up. And so whenever you purchase something like this, you need to know exactly what the covenants say so that you know what your responsibilities are and what the responsibilities of the entire development are. Here we have the advantages and the disadvantages of living in a condominium. The advantages are going to be, well, it's not going to cost as much. Also, there's less maintenance. You don't have to worry about cutting your own grass. Some people really like that. Location is usually really good. So it's going to be usually close to town or in the middle of town, close to restaurants, close to shopping, that kind of thing. And then also you have the amenities that go along with it. So if there's a swimming pool, you have access to it, but you don't have to maintain it. And then it is still fee simple ownership. So your individual unit you own in fee simple, which is the full bundle of rights. So what are some of the disadvantages? Well, you're living really, really close to other people. Some people like that, some people don't. There is also a loss of control because there are certain restrictions of things that you can and can't do while you live there. You also have the fees that are associated with it. You have to answer to the board of directors. You have to adhere to the bylaws. So there's advantages and disadvantages. You just have to figure out what works best for you as an individual. Cooperatives are very unique to real estate, and I'm going to explain to you here how this works. In a cooperative, you actually have a corporation that owns the property. So think about a high-rise building, and there is a company that owns that building. Inside of the building are apartments. If you want to live in one of those apartments, then what you do is you buy shares in the company. So you own shares of stock in that company. This is what we call a co-op. And whenever you purchase stock, that gives you a proprietary lease. The proprietary lease then allows you to live in one of the units. So you have a company who actually owns the building. You buy shares of stock in the company. The shares of stock that you purchase provide you with a proprietary lease so you can live there. Here we have a picture of what this looks like. So you have a corporation that holds title to all of the land, all of the improvements, but you have people who want to live in these units. So in order to be able to do that, they purchase shares of stock in the company. That then gives them proprietary leases so that they can live in the units. Cooperatives are not common anymore. You used to see cooperatives more frequently in the 70s and even in the early 80s. There are some areas like really, really big cities like New York and Chicago, Los Angeles, where you will still see cooperatives. But the reason that they aren't as common anymore is because they're very, very difficult to finance. How do you finance a lease? Okay, and so most of the time when you see someone who is investing in a cooperative, they're paying cash. So there's a very big difference there between cooperatives and condominium type units. And this is one of the reasons why cooperatives are just not as common anymore. They're just so difficult to find. Here we have planned unit developments. So planned unit developments can be made up of different types of housing. So you might have individual homes, single family homes. You might have townhouses, duplexes, condos. There's a variety of different things within that one particular area. And it's planned that way initially. Ownership in a community association that owns common areas is also very common in a planned unit development. So if you own a house in the development or if you own a duplex in the development, there is a community association that you're a part of, and you still own all of the common areas as tenants in common. The biggest difference is there are different types of housing within a planned unit development. So these are very popular in Florida. You see this a lot down there. There are a few areas like this in our area, but not quite as many. You see it in a lot of resort type areas. These are timeshares. If you've ever been to a timeshare presentation, then you have a little bit of an idea of what a timeshare is all about, but really it's all about financing your vacation each year. So if you buy into the idea of owning a timeshare, what you're doing is you are purchasing typically 2 weeks out of each year where you can choose a particular resort where you go and have your vacation. Most of the time, organizations that sell timeshares will be big companies who own resorts in lots of different locations. So you might be able to choose from the Bahamas or St. Croix, or you might be able to go to Mexico one year. You have different options. But what you're doing is you're financing your vacation. So you make a payment every single month, unless you're paying flat out cash for it. But you make a payment every single month, and that goes towards the 2 weeks that you're going to be spending at one of these particular units. It is fee simple ownership, but you are sharing time with other people. You're only owning it for a certain number of weeks. It could be 1 week or 2 weeks out of each year. If you know that you're going to vacation for 2 straight weeks every single year, this might be a great option for you. A lot of people, though, when they buy into a timeshare, they realize after a few years that it's not really worth it to them, and so they try to sell it. They try to get out of it. So it's really up to you. I think it's a little bit overrated, but that is just my opinion. I have been to 2 different timeshare presentations in my life. I will never do it again because they try so hard to sell you. They tell you, you kind of come in here, it's going to last 90 minutes, and then you can leave. You don't have to buy anything. Literally 3 hours later, you're like, look, I got to go, okay? I can't do it anymore. So just be really cautious. They may not even call it a timeshare anymore. They might just say, hey, listen, we're going to give you a deal to come and stay at our resort for 3 days, and it's a really, really good discounted rate. You just have to come watch this presentation for 90 minutes. That's a timeshare, okay? They're not giving you a really good deal just for the heck of it. They're going to try to sell you something. So unless you're really interested in investing in a timeshare, and like I said, it could be for you, it may not, keep in mind that that presentation is going to go way longer than they say it will. So that's it, guys. That was chapter 23, and here are some of the key terms that you should take away from it.